G'day guys, looks like it's my turn at the staff meeting to do the presentation. I'm going to have a talk to you guys about a maths activity that we've been doing in my 3-4 class this week. It's easily transferable to all the other grades within the school. I've been working on some symmetry. Please excuse my voice. I'm a little bit blocked up at the moment with a cold, but we'll battle on through. So, as I say, we've been talking to the 3-4s about symmetry this week. I explained to the 3-4s that symmetry is a shape that can be flipped, turned, rotated or mirrored, and is exactly the same on both sides. They seem to get hold of that pretty well. At the start of the lesson, or the start of the week, I should say, we did do some quick revision on some basic two-dimensional shapes, that being square and rectangle, triangles, and circles. Now, in the initial instance in symmetry, we've only touched on what you would call regular shapes. We haven't done any irregular shapes as yet. We also had to introduce some terms to the kids that you may have to spend a little bit of time on, those being horizontal line, vertical line, and diagonal line. I've just done up a little thing here just to show the kids there of how the lines position within a shape, because you will use these lines a fair bit when discussing symmetry. In the initial instance, we tried to gauge what the kids already knew. So I asked, does anyone know what symmetry is, and was met with a lot of blank faces. So the best way to explain it to the kids, I found, was I got a piece of A4 paper. I folded it in half so that all the edges were matching, there was none overhanging, and opened it back up again, and the fold is my line of symmetry because both sides are now the same. And of course, kids being kids, they said, well, I can do that to any piece of paper. I said, well, no, you can't actually. So I've got a rectangle piece and showed them and just folded it like that. And I said, well, this isn't symmetrical because you can see the edges don't line up, the halves aren't even, and they seem to be able to get hold of that okay, the difference between irregular and irregular shapes. Once we've done the revision of our basic two-dimensional shapes, squares, rectangles, triangles, and circles, I then got some shapes and showed them with some dotted lines how many lines of symmetry a shape has, because not all shapes have the same amount. Say a square, for instance, has 4 and a rectangle has 2. And you can see there that no matter which, if you cut along any of those perforated lines on the square, then you'll end up with a symmetrical shape. A triangle, however, different triangles have different ones. Some triangles have no lines of symmetry, but in the initial instance we used a basic triangle on different rotations to show the kids that if we can put a perforated line through the middle here, or a perforated line through the middle here, you can still have a symmetrical triangle even if you rotate it around. A circle, however, can have infinite lines of symmetry, because if you put any line, as long as it's through the center axis, you will have a symmetrical shape on either side. But that's another story for another day for the kids. We're only taking small steps at the start. Now we end up doing a class activity, because we've done the folding activity, we've been through some geographical shapes. It's time for the kids to now start engaging in the lesson and start exploring. And you'll find once you start this with the children, they really do grasp the concept pretty well. So at the start, I gave all of the kids in my class a square piece of paper, and I'll let them discover how many lines of symmetry a square has. Some did the folding technique that I'd explained, and some got out a ruler and a pencil. So if we fold it in half again, and unfold it, you can see that the fold lines are the lines of symmetry. Once we were done, we counted the lines with the class, and there should have been 4 lines of symmetry, and all the kids really loved showing off their work. Once we've done that, we started to challenge the kids a little bit more. We went on to what we called a sorting game. So we had a lot of different shapes, all cut out of paper, different colours, some symmetrical, some non-symmetrical, and the kids had to put these into their groups, symmetrical shapes and non-symmetrical shapes. And this sort of gets them hands-on, gets them thinking about what they're doing, gets them folding pieces of paper, and it gets them to put into practice what they've learnt. I also found some worksheets on a great website, K6 Math. It's K6 Math /geometry/symmetrical shapes. Now these are great for 3/4s. They can also be used in the 5/6s as well. And what they are basically shapes and or pictures of animals in nature. And the kids can get a ruler and a pencil, draw their own lines of symmetry down them, and then they just have to tick a box as to whether any of these shapes are symmetrical or not. So by now the kids are really engaged in the lesson, and I'm sure you can see it's a pretty fun lesson for the kids. What we can do now is you can give them a choice. You can have a butterfly or a heart, just to show them again how symmetry works. So you get an A4 piece of paper, fold it in half, draw half a butterfly on one side, or you get another piece of paper and draw half of a heart on the other side, and then you get the kids to cut out along the lines, and they either end up with a heart or a butterfly, which then further emphasises how symmetry works. And then they can spend the next 15 minutes decorating their heart or their butterfly to give them something to take home. It really consolidates the learning for the lesson, and it really gives them something to engage in, and I found it really, really good. My kids loved it. So yeah, cheers guys.